The baby's screams tore through the airplane cabin long before the wheels even lifted off the ground, a raw, aching cry that made every passenger shift uncomfortably in their seats. It wasn't the kind of fussiness that could be soothed with a pacifier or a rocking motion. It was the desperate, trembling wail of an infant in distress, a sound that ricocheted off the narrow walls and struck the exhausted heart of the father clutching her. Passengers' eyes darted, brows furrowed, whispers rose like sparks, and there in the midst of it all sat a man who looked like he was drowning silently in embarrassment, fear, and exhaustion. His hands shook as he bounced his baby girl, his face flushed with helplessness, while rows of annoyed passengers shot daggers at him with their eyes. And then, everything changed when a woman 2 rows ahead slowly stood up and walked toward him with an expression nobody expected, an expression filled not with judgment, but something far more powerful. If you believe that kindness and second chances still matter in this world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark to keep these stories alive. The man's name was Arden Maris, a 29-year-old single father who still hadn't fully learned how to navigate life without his partner. His baby girl, Mina, only 8 months old, had been fragile since birth, sensitive to changes, sensitive to sounds, sensitive to everything. Arden had prepared meticulously for their daytime flight to visit his family for the first time since Mina's birth. He packed extra formula bottles, toys, a blanket that still carried the faint lavender scent of Mina's late mother, and even downloaded soothing white noise tracks on his phone. But none of that mattered the moment Mina sensed something unfamiliar. The cabin pressure, the crowd, the movement, the tension, it all built around her like a storm she couldn't understand. And as the plane boarded, she exploded into uncontrollable sobs that racked her. Tiny body, Arden felt each cry like a knife. He bounced her, whispered to her, pleaded silently with her. He avoided the eyes around him as much as he could, but he couldn't unhear the sighs, the murmurs, the subtle complaints from those nearby. A woman across the aisle muttered loudly about people who can't control their children. A man behind them groaned every time Mina's cry pitched higher. Arden wasn't angry at them. He was barely holding himself together. His shirt clung with sweat, his arms grew numb from cradling Mina so tightly, and his eyes kept darting toward the flight attendants, hoping they wouldn't approach him with another question he didn't know how to answer. He wished his partner was still alive. She had been the calming force Mina always responded to, gentle, musical, patient. But a sudden illness had taken her away before she ever got to watch Mina grow. Arden had been thrust into fatherhood alone, learning everything through trial, error, and quiet tears once the baby finally slept. He didn't resent Mina, not for a second. He loved her fiercely. But moments like this carved into him a loneliness so sharp he didn't know how to breathe through it. Then, when he thought he had reached the breaking point, when Mina's cries had gone hoarse and his own chest felt tight, something unexpected happened. A woman with warm brown eyes, long black hair tied into a loose braid, and a baby carrier strapped to her waist stepped into the aisle. Her name was Selina Rafe, a single mother traveling with her 4-year-old son, Jory, who was currently fast asleep under a soft blue blanket. She had been watching Arden for the last 10 minutes, every second of his silent panic, and something inside her refused to stand by any longer. As she approached, passengers perked up with interest, some likely expecting confrontation. Arden braced himself, prepared for harsh words or complaints, but instead, Selina crouched beside his seat, her voice gentle and warm, soft enough for only him to hear. "May I try?" she asked, her eyes drifting down to Mina with a tender understanding only another struggling parent could give. Arden blinked, stunned. "Try what?" "To hold her," Selina said softly. "If you're comfortable, sometimes babies respond differently to a new rhythm. I've been a single mom long enough to know the signs of a little one who's overwhelmed." Arden stared at her for a moment, torn between hesitation and desperation. Mina's cries were still shaking the air. His own hands trembled, and in that moment he felt his pride crumble, not because he felt incapable, but because he realized he didn't have to shoulder everything alone. He nodded. Selina lifted Mina gently, her movement slow, sure, practiced with years of handling Jory through his own struggles as a toddler. She placed Mina against her shoulder, humming a soft, rhythmic tune that travelers nearby strained to hear. It wasn't a lullaby or a song, it was simply a sound, a calming vibration that vibrated through her chest, steady as a heartbeat. Slowly, gradually, unbelievably, Mina's frantic cries began to soften. The cabin fell into a hush of astonished relief. Selina swayed carefully, rocking in small circles, whispering soothing nonsense words with a mother's instinctual grace. Within minutes, Mina had stopped crying entirely, her tiny fist curling into Selina's braid, her breathing steady, her eyes drooping with exhausted surrender. Arden watched with an expression that broke the hearts of the few who noticed it. His eyes glistened, his shoulders slumped, and a shaky breath escaped him as though he had been holding it for hours. He wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small. He wanted to apologize too, but that felt equally unworthy of the moment. The passengers around them melted into relief, some offering awkward smiles, some simply grateful for the quiet. And yet, none of their gratitude mattered. Only one person had stepped forward when it counted, Selina. Slid into the empty seat beside Arden, still holding Mina securely. "She's exhausted," she murmured softly, carefully brushing a stray curl off the baby's forehead. "She just needed to borrow a little calm." Arden swallowed hard. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to," she said gently. "We're all doing our best, and sometimes our best needs someone else's hands." As the plane lifted into the sky, the tension slowly dissolved. Arden sat beside Selina, their shoulders nearly touching, and for the first time since boarding, he felt his lungs fill completely with air. He stole glances at Selina, noticing the soft tiredness in her eyes, the quiet strength she carried like an invisible shield, the way she checked on her sleeping son, even while comforting a stranger's child. The flight stretched on in peaceful calm, sunlight streaming through the windows and painting their row in warm gold. For over an hour, Mina slept against Selina, while Arden and Selina talked in low voices. Their conversation wasn't small talk. It was the type that emerged only between two people who had weathered storms they didn't know how to fully describe.